Hey, what's up, YouTube family? You know what it is. It's your favorite black guy from Nebraska. Check it out. So, I'm going to do a second part to the European slum. I read the second part after this same chapter, but another part of the chapter, and it blew my mind. So I said, you know what? They got to hear about this sooner than later. So, we're going to talk about the land of the blacks. Okay, New Amsterdam, because you already know that. And centuries before, we had towns. We had a lot of areas that we owned, a lot of cities and towns. I mean, we had a lot of ownership, in the 1800s, 1700s. We did. And this is evidence of it. I do have more content on this specifically in my videos, in my earlier videos. You should check it out. But don't even worry about that, because I'm gonna give you a whole new spin on it, because this is amazing information. And if you enjoyed the 5 slums video, if you enjoyed all the videos, you really going to enjoy this. So, you know which book I'm out of. I don't even need to talk about it. We're going to go ahead and read this part of the chapter. Land of the Blacks, Earth van Negros, New Amsterdam, Manhattan. Okay. You also do know, I'm going to throw this out there just for SHITs and giggles. Seneca Village was an all-black town, and guess what it used to be? Oh, guess what it is now? Central Park, New York. Yes, right. Central Park used to be called Seneca Village, right? Isn't it ironic? In the Central Park 5, the 5 guys who got convicted for, I think, rape, right? And they weren't guilty, right? They got vindicated, but it just so happened that Central Park used to be an all-black town called Seneca Village, and we're also going to talk about that. That's in here. So, man, you got to look at this book, man. It's free. www.archive.org, guys. It's your best friend if you love information, and if you love making content, you gotta check it out. So, don't let me go ahead and keep rambling, y'all. I'm not going to keep rambling, because this is a lot of information, and you need to be paying attention because you're going to learn a lot. So, let's go ahead and get started. How big was the Negro population in Manhattan during this time period? That's the question. As you just earlier read, it was very active in trade and war between the years of 1600s and 1800s, and had a huge migration of Algonquin, Iroquois, and Arawakan nations living and using it as a central trade route between the nations, who's been in and around the areas for centuries prior to the European arrival. At one time, it was called Earth van Negros, by the Dutch translated to the land of Negroes. Most American historians would translate it to the land of the blacks in English. The story you'll hear from the American historians today. The land of the blacks, Earth van Negros, also Negro Frontier or Free Negro Lots, was a village settled by people of Negro descent north of the Wall of New Amsterdam from about 1643 to 1716. It represented an economic, legal, and military modus vivendi reached with the Dutch West Indian Company in the wake of Kieft's War. This buffer area with the Delaware is sometimes considered the first free Negro settlement in North America, although the landowners had half free status. Its name comes from the descriptions in 1640s land conveniences of white-owned properties as bordering the hereditament or freehold of the blacks. There were about 30 Negro-owned farms, over about 130 acres, which equates to 98 football fields, centered in the neighborhoods of Greenwich Village and Soho, including all the areas surrounding Washington Square Park. The rights of the free Negro community gradually eroded after the conquest of New Netherland in 1664 and the area's incorporation into the province of New York. End quote. So check the picture out in front of you. Hopefully you guys can see it. Blow it up if you need to. It says the gray area is what was called the land of Negroes, or Earth van Negros, by the Dutch in 1640 to 1664. In the green box, bottom left-hand corner represents the area. Over 20,000 graves were found in 1755. The red box represents the area of 5.1800. So look at all that land in that gray area. Look at all that land. I mean, it's even bigger than the red box, in my opinion. But yeah, that was all land, full of thriving black people at one point in time, okay? They want you to think that, 1600s, you guys were enslaved and you didn't have this. And that's simply not true. So we're busting up those myths today, all right? So let's go ahead and go to the next page because, like I said, it's a lot of information and you're not going to want to miss out on it, okay? I love information, man. We're here to eat it up, man, and we're here to apply it, right? So let's go ahead and not waste any time. Question mark. Who owns what? Here's a map of New Amsterdam colony fort in 1660. North is up in this map. Look how much of present-day Manhattan would have been underwater back in 1660. Manhattan's west coast would have been present-day Greenwich Street, and the south and east coast is along present-day Pearl Street. Okay, and I hope you guys can see that picture. A lot of the coast has been added in the 1900s using dredged sand and poured concrete on shallow waters. All right. Land of the Negro, New Amsterdam, 1640 to 1664. The red square represents the Negro burial. Now I'm at the top right-hand corner. Okay, I'm reading the what's up there. All right, so if you look at that picture, you see the red square, and it says the land of the Negro, New Amsterdam, 1640 to 1644. The red square presents the Negro burial. The amount of land the Dutch were only able to take in war between 1600 to 1660 from Pearl and State Street to Liberty Street, size of fort. So we're going to look at the bottom of those pictures. I'm talking about the one on the left now at the bottom. 2,429 feet, 740 meters of taken by force stolen land. Wow, that's a lot of land. 1.33 plus miles of inherited and legally owned lands. History says they purchased it, but from who? So, not to confuse you guys, but we're going to talk about what we just read at the bottom here. So let's go ahead and talk about it. How is it that supposedly 30 American Negroes were legally allowed to purchase and own more land and to end within let's go ahead and read. I'm going to read that over. How is it that supposedly 30 American Negroes were legally allowed to purchase and own more land and to end within 24 years? Then the Dutch crown and fort of New Amsterdam could forcefully take in war against the Indians in 50 plus years. The math definitely isn't adding up. No, that doesn't. How is it that 1618 was supposedly the first 20 and odd Negroes today retold as 20 and odd Africans first touching down in Jamestown? A myth told over and over to their youth and others alike. But 22 years later, they somehow own more land than Europeans throughout the South and North. How were they able to buy it? From the crown with that money? Their slave wages? No, that doesn't make sense. In the 1600s, you needed a land patent to sell, buy, or own land, or you would be persecuted by the crown, who was also trying to claim it. Land patents, historically called crown patents, usually came from the crown of the colony, or you inherited the land before any Europeans came and took it. So let's go ahead and continue on the next page. The graph below shows the amount of so-called slaves in all colonies combined, as it was mentioned earlier in one in the laws. Jews, non-Christian whites, Negro Indians, and Moors were all subject to slavers. So we have a table here. Growth of the slave population in the United States, 1619 to 1865. You can go ahead and read all that and blow it up on your phone or your computer if you need to. You got the time periods here, 1610 to 1620, 1620 to 1630, 1630 to 1640, 1640 to 1650, 1650 to 1660. For the most part, I see a gradual growth, right? I see a steady growth here in all the numbers, but you say, I think some of it is a gradual growth, some of it is not, but for most part, man, it's growth. You got population at the beginning, population at the end, 10-year growth rate, numbers of person years lived, millions of hours of worked, assumed birth rate, numbers of births. All this stuff is pretty interesting. So let's go ahead and read the what's at the bottom here. Between 1650 and 1660, there were supposedly only 1,506 slaves in all what was considered United States at that time. That's not a lot. But there was also the free Negro population that dwarfed the supposed Negro slave population and owned more land than the European colonists. Interesting. If they were supposedly free, who freed them? The English historians say the Dutch were the Dutch when Amsterdam was taken, but the Dutch sources show them to be the Indians that were at war with. We touched on this graph and much more in the chapter of the transatlantic slave narrative. So I'm going to read that chapter here pretty soon so we can go ahead and put two and two together, right? So in my opinion, while they're saying that there were a lot more free Negroes than slaves, I believe that a lot of these supposedly Europeans in the 1600s and to start these colonies, a lot of them, I believe, were black Europeans. A lot of what the indigenous Indians went through in these times, a lot of it was us on us. I have a book by Lee Cummings called The Beginning of the 13 Colonies. And basically the gist of that book is based on the Negro Question Part 6, the 13 Black Colonies. So it's a book by Lee Cummings. You should read that if you're interested. It's called The 13 Black Colonies, the Negro Question Part 6. So before I get off into stuff I shouldn't be getting into, let's go ahead and go to the page. And I believe this might be the last page, I believe. Tension between the new immigrants and the American Negro population. Okay. Before we moved on, we have to address a few things never shared nor talked about. When the newly arrived immigrants came to shore, they were sent to what was known as Negro communities, like they are today, where they are encouraged by the newly formed government to squat on their lands. They went as far as creating squatters' rights, which many black Americans weren't aware of. In the graph below, you will notice 5 points grew out of land owned by the American Negro population. Wow. The gray area is what is called the land of the Negroes. Earth von Negros by Dutch, 1640-1644. Let me reread all this. In the green box, bottom left hand corner represents the area of 20,000 graves were found in 1755. Wow, 20 graves were found in that green box area, bottom left, in 1755. The red box represents the area of 5 points, 1800s. Because there were no laws in place to protect those who had been reclassified as Negroes or people of color, the new white immigrant population started taking advantage of the local black population any chance they could by stealing their ideas, innovations, businesses, and most importantly, the land, which they are still doing today. After they had fully established, some years later, they started attacking said Negro communities in a series of unprovoked attacks in hopes of pushing them out of the area from their lands, as all simply because they didn't like the complexion of their skin tones. Thousands of victims would be viciously murdered and celebrated public hangings on trees, poles, or anything that would hold, being put on spits and burnt alive. Many of the women and children being kidnapped and sold into slavery, as you've seen with Sophia Pooley, having many horrible things done to them you couldn't even imagine. One movie that will portray how far they went to push them from their land in the South back into the North is called Them, 2021. If you would like to see how violent 5 Points was, just watch Gangs of New York, which was based on the 5 Points. In the year 2000, a man by the name of James Allen released a book titled Without Sanctuary, releasing the Tuskegee Institute records, the lynching of 3,436 black Americans between 1882 and 1950. Without Sanctuary preserves these harrowing death-marked depictions. saving them so that we may recognize the terrorism unleashed on Black indigenous population of America. This book will give you a hard visual glimpse on the history of America so desperately wants to hide. On the next page, which is basically the next chapter, or the next part of this chapter, on the next page, we're going to show some examples, because just saying it doesn't show the extent of the mass brutality all across New York and all other states by the new incoming white immigrants. Wow, that's a lot to think about, man. That's pretty heavy. The next part of that is called Without Sanctuary, 1882-1950, and it's pretty rough. I may or may not give that guys to you or show that to you, because it's really, really rough. I mean, I'm looking at it now and I'm already feeling some type of way. So I don't know. I may not. But the chapter after that does talk about the Seneca Village, and I did bring that up. So I may, I don't know, guys. I don't know. It's rough, but the story does need to be told. You know what I mean? Like I always say. So it's a good chance I will. But I would like to go back to some of the minstrel shows put on in America and in Europe, and because there's a lot of information here. So I'm a bounce back and forth in this book. I'm not reading it all the way through because there are certain chapters I like to give you quicker than others. But I also don't want to get lost. I don't want you guys to be like, oh man, I'm kind of lost. So I want it to make sense at the same time. So I hope you guys really enjoyed that. I hope you guys are liking, sharing, and subscribing my content, man, because man, that means the world to me when I get comments about how much you guys enjoy what I'm doing, and how much you guys really you're paying attention and you're learning. And I hope you guys are able to share this with other like-minded people, other people who, and you use this as evidence, man, for repeating conversations or debates or anything of that nature, man. Use this as evidence, man. Use me, use it, man. I'm not the type to be like, man, nah, use it, man. You know what I'm saying? This information ain't for me. I'm not curtailing. I'm not gatekeeping none of this information. Like I said, man, go to archive.org. You can get all this for free on your phone. You know what I'm saying? Do it, man. I ain't nobody, for real. I'm just another person want to share information, man, and get the truth out there. You got, this country wants to get rid of the African American Museum, or they want to get rid of, certain information. Go ahead, take it, because you know what? It's going to be up to us to bring it to the forefront. Now, if you do that, you put it in our hands. Now we're going to take, we're going to take it and we're going to run with it. So if America wants to take and erase its government funding Black history, go ahead, man. Half of that stuff is garbage anyway, and it's not even true. So just take it, and then we'll come with the real, So I didn't want to go on the tangent, but yeah. Please continue to like, share, and subscribe. Appreciate you guys. Please comment in the comment section, and hopefully YouTube decides to be nice and put me in the algorithm. YouTube, man, is wishy-washy sometimes. Like, I'll have my content out for like a week, 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden one of my videos just randomly will go viral. It's weird like that. But I'm just gonna keep putting the information out there. What goes viral, it goes viral. What doesn't. So it's your favorite Black guy from Nebraska. Yes, it's Black people in Nebraska. I'm out. Peace.